The text came in at 6:47 inches the morning while I was still in my scrubs, standing under the fluorescent buzz of the hospital break room with a lukewarm cup of coffee I hadn't had a single sip of. I'd just finished a 12-hour overnight shift in the ICU, and my feet ached so deeply I could feel every heartbeat in my heels. My phone lit up on the table. Mom. My stomach nodded the way it always did, that trained reflex from years of bracing for whatever crisis she was about to hand me. I picked it up. You've always been the problem in this family. Thanksgiving is at your sister's this year. Don't bother showing up. We're tired of your negativity and your constant need to make everything about money. Megan doesn't want you there. Neither do I. Maybe if you spent less time complaining and more time being grateful, you'd still have a family. I read it 3 times. Then I set the phone down, very carefully, like it might shatter. My name is Sophie, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the moment those words hit my brain, something shifted in a place so deep I didn't even know it existed. They'd finally said the quiet part out loud. And now I was going to say mine. See, here's the thing they were counting on. They were counting on me to do what I'd done every single time before. Cry. Apologize. Show up with a casserole and a smile, and pretend the knife in my back was just a friendly pat. That's how it had worked for 10 years. Ever since I finished nursing school and started pulling real paychecks, I had become the family's unofficial bank, insurance plan, and emotional punching bag, all wrapped into one exhausted body. Let me show you what I mean. My father had a chronic heart condition, needed medication every month that cost more than some people's car payments. I paid for it, every single month. My sister Megan, the golden child who married Todd, a guy who sold luxury cars and spent like he owned the dealership, she had credit so bad the bank laughed when she applied for a loan. So, whose name went on the car note? Mine. Whose credit score was quietly bleeding out every time Megan missed a payment she swore she'd cover? Mine. And Mom? Mom had a gift for turning every holiday, every birthday, every phone call into a reminder that I wasn't doing enough. That Megan was the real daughter. That I was lucky they even included me. I stood in that break room, fluorescent light humming above me, and felt something I'd never felt before. Not sadness, not anger, calm. A terrifying, electric calm, like the air before a thunderstorm snaps. I sat down at the break room table, opened my laptop, and got to work. First, I pulled up the auto pay for Dad's medication and insurance premium. The one I'd set up 4 years ago that quietly drained $1,870 from my account every single month. I stared at it, thought about all the times I'd skipped buying groceries for myself so that payment would clear. Thought about the time I ate ramen for 2 straight weeks because Megan had borrowed $3,000 for Todd's birthday trip and never paid me back. Cancel. Confirmed. Next, I logged into the bank portal. The car loan. Megan's pearl white Lexus that she paraded around town like she'd earned it. My name, my credit, her joy ride. I'd begged her for 2 years to refinance it under her own name. She always had an excuse. I'll do it next month, Sophie. Todd's between deals right now. Don't be difficult. I initiated the process to remove myself as co-signer and reported to the lender that I was no longer authorizing payments from my account. Let Megan explain that one to the bank. Then the monthly transfer. $1,500 I sent to Mom's account like clockwork on the 1st of every month. For groceries, she said. For the house, she said. Funny how that house always seemed to have new curtains and a freshly landscaped yard while I was living in a studio apartment with a window that didn't close all the way. I opened the transfer settings and deleted the recurring payment. Gone. 3 clicks. 3. That's all it took to dismantle a decade of being used. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From the raw, uncut thrill of finally choosing myself. I closed the laptop, finished my cold coffee in one long gulp, and drove home as the sun came up over the city. The world looked different, sharper, like someone had wiped a fog off the windshield I didn't even know was there. I slept like the dead, no guilt dreams, no 3 a.m. anxiety spirals, just deep, black, beautiful silence. When I woke up 6 hours later, my phone had 43 missed calls. I scrolled through them with a strange sense of detachment. Mom, 12 times. Megan, 9 times. Dad, twice. And a cluster of numbers I didn't recognize. The text messages were even better. Mom, Sophie, the insurance company called. They said Dad's coverage was canceled. Call me now. Megan. What the fuck, Sophie? The bank just called about my car. What did you do? Mom, your father could die. Is that what you want? Is this your idea of revenge? Megan, you're sick. You're actually sick in the head. Todd is furious. Mom, I'm calling your work. I'm telling them what kind of person you really are. I set the phone down on my nightstand and stared at the ceiling. For a second, the old guilt tried to crawl in. The image of Dad without his meds. The fear that I was truly the monster they'd always whispered I was. But then I remembered something. I remembered the Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I'd driven 4 hours after a double shift to make it to dinner. I'd brought homemade sweet potato pie, Dad's favorite, and a bottle of wine that cost me half a day's pay. When I walked in, everyone was already seated. There was no chair for me. Not forgotten. Not overlooked. Megan had set the table for exactly the number of people -1. When I stood there, pie in hand, Mom had looked at me and said, "Oh, we didn't think you were coming. Just pull up something from the kitchen." I ate Thanksgiving dinner on a bar stool in the corner while they laughed and clinked glasses 10 feet away. And when I left, no one said goodbye. That memory burned away every shred of guilt. I picked up my phone and typed one reply to my mother's 18 messages. You told me not to come to Thanksgiving. You told me I was the problem. I'm removing the problem. You're welcome. I hit send and made myself a cup of real coffee. Not the burnt hospital stuff. A good pour-over with the beans I'd been saving. I stood by my kitchen window, watching the November light filter through the trees, and felt something settle in my chest that I could only describe as peace. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. Miss Sophie? A man's voice, tight and overly professional. This is David Crane from Pacific Ridge Financial. I'm calling regarding the vehicle loan co-signed under your name. The primary borrower has been notified of your withdrawal, and I'm afraid the account is now in a complicated position. We'd like to discuss options. There's nothing to discuss, I said. I've removed my authorization. The primary borrower is Megan Whitfield. Talk to her. He hesitated. Ma'am, if the primary borrower cannot sustain the payments independently, the vehicle may be subject to repossession. I finished for him. Yes. I understand how loans work. I'm a nurse, not an idiot. Silence. Then, carefully, we'll be in contact with Mrs. Whitfield. You do that. I hung up and caught myself smiling. Not a cruel smile. Not a vengeful one. Just the quiet satisfaction of a woman who'd finally stopped setting herself on fire to keep everyone else warm. An hour later, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and my breath caught. Mom. Standing on my doorstep in her camel-colored coat, purse clutched to her chest like a shield. She must have driven 40 minutes to get here. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home. But a bigger part of me, the part that had been silent for too many years, wanted her to see that I wasn't afraid anymore. I opened the door. She didn't say hello. Didn't ask how I was. Didn't even look me in the eye at first. She just launched in, voice shaking with a fury that used to make me shrink into nothing. Do you have any idea what you've done? Your father's cardiologist called. His prescription coverage is gone. Gone, Sophie. He needs those medications. He could have a cardiac episode. And Megan is hysterical. The bank is threatening to take her car. Todd had to cancel a client meeting to deal with this. You've thrown this entire family into chaos. Because of what? A text message? I leaned against the door frame, didn't invite her in. A text message that told me I'm not family, I said calmly. A text message that said don't show up. That I'm the problem. Remember that one, Mom? Or did you already forget? Her mouth tightened. I was upset. You know how I get. You always twist everything I say. I didn't twist anything. I have the screenshot. She shifted her weight, recalculating. I'd seen this before, the pivot from attack to guilt. Sophie, honey. Her voice softened. Butter over broken glass. We need you. Your father needs you. This isn't the time to be petty. And there it was. The word that sealed it, petty. As if 10 years of draining my bank account, my credit, my self-worth was nothing, and my one act of self-preservation was pettiness. Mom, I said. And I let the word hang there, heavy and final. I've been paying for this family since I was 22 years old. I've paid for Dad's medicine. I've covered Megan's car. I've sent you $1,500 every month while eating ramen in an apartment with a broken window. And not once, not one single time, has anyone in that house said thank you. She blinked. I watched something flicker behind her eyes. Not shame, not yet. Just the discomfort of hearing truth spoken plainly. We're your family, she said, like that explained everything. Like that word was a skeleton key that should unlock my wallet, my time, my dignity, whenever they needed it. Family doesn't send texts like that. I straightened up, squaring my shoulders. Family doesn't set a table for everyone except one person. Family doesn't take and take and take and then call it love. Mom's chin wobbled. Megan's car, Sophie. They'll take it. Then Megan should have made her payments. Or refinanced under her own name like I asked 20 times. Your father's medication. Dad has Medicare. He can apply for the supplemental plan. I'll send you the link. She stared at me. Genuinely stared, like she was seeing me for the first time, and I realized she probably was. For my entire life, I had been background noise. The reliable one. The quiet one. The one who showed up and paid up and never made a scene. She had no framework for a Sophie who said no. You'll regret this, she whispered. I smiled. I've only ever regretted saying yes. And then, gently, the way you close a book you've finally finished reading, I shut the door. I stood on my side of it for a long time, hand still on the knob, heart hammering. I could hear her heels clicking down the hallway. Then the heavy thud of the building's front door. I waited until the sound of her car engine faded to nothing. Then I sat on my couch and cried. Not because I was sad. Not because I regretted it, but because it was over. The performance, the pretending, the endless exhausting act of being the good daughter, it was finally over. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it expecting more venom. Instead, it was my friend Elena from the hospital. Hey girl, your mom just called the nurse's station asking for the charge nurse. Said she needed to report a family emergency and wanted your schedule. Karen told her to pound sand. Just wanted you to know. You okay? I laughed so hard, tears rolled down my cheeks again. Mom had actually called my job. Of course she had. When manipulation didn't work, she went for the jugular. But she'd picked the wrong nurse's station. Karen, our charge nurse, was a 6'2" former army medic who had zero tolerance for nonsense. I texted Elena back. I'm better than okay. Thank you. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I ordered dinner. Not ramen. Not the $4 frozen meals I'd been living on. I ordered a real meal from the Italian place down the block. Chicken parmesan, garlic bread, a side salad, and tiramisu. When it arrived, I set the table for one. I found a candle under the sink, a vanilla one I'd bought months ago and never lit because it felt wasteful to burn something expensive just for myself. I lit it, I sat down, and I ate every single bite. That night, the texts kept coming. A relay race of guilt, anger, and bargaining. Megan, Todd says if we lose the car he's going to sue you. You have no right to do this to us. I typed back. He can sue the co-signer, who missed 11 payments. Oh wait, that's you. Dad texted for the first time all day. Just 2 words, call me. I didn't. Not because I didn't love him, but because I knew exactly how that call would go. He'd be quiet. He'd let the silence do the heavy lifting. Then he'd say something like, "Your mother is very upset." As if her feelings were a natural disaster I was responsible for cleaning up. I'd heard that script 1,000 times, and I wasn't auditioning for that role anymore. Instead, I opened my laptop and emailed my attorney. Yes, I had an attorney, a woman named Diane who I'd found 6 months ago when I first started planning this. Not planning revenge. Planning escape. There's a difference. Diane had helped me understand my legal options, reviewed every document, and told me something I'd carry with me forever. Sophie, you are not legally or morally obligated to finance people who treat you like an ATM with a heartbeat. I forwarded her the threats from Todd about suing and Megan's texts. She replied within the hour. Let them try. Everything you did was within your legal rights. If Todd contacts you again with threats, forward them to me directly. I closed the laptop and exhaled. The apartment was quiet. The candle flickered. The leftover tiramisu sat in the fridge like a little trophy. And I realized this was the first evening in as long as I could remember where my stomach wasn't clenched in knots waiting for the next demand, the next crisis, the next reminder that I existed only to serve. Over the next few days, the storm intensified before it died. Megan posted a vague rant on social media about family betrayal without naming me. But everyone in our circle knew. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly texted me. Some were supportive, most were not. Aunt Linda left a voicemail saying I should be ashamed. Uncle Ray sent a one-line text, "Your grandmother would be heartbroken." Nice try, but Grandma had been dead for 8 years, and she was the only person in that family who'd ever treated me like more than a convenience. Then the big one came. Mom orchestrated a full family intervention. She called my cousin Danielle, my Aunt Patricia, even old Miss Us, Kowalski from the church group, to flood my phone with messages about how I was destroying the family. As if the family had been anything other than a pyramid scheme with my name at the bottom. I didn't argue with any of them. I simply sent the same message to each one. I appreciate your concern. I encourage you to ask Mom and Megan how much money they've taken from me over the last decade and how many times they've said thank you. Then we can talk. The responses dried up pretty quickly after that. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, something unexpected happened. Dad showed up at my apartment. Alone. No ambush, no Mom lurking in the car. Just him, looking older than I remembered, in his worn brown jacket with a fraying collar. I let him in. We sat at my tiny kitchen table, the same one where I'd eaten that chicken parmesan by candlelight, and he didn't say anything for a long time. He just looked around at my apartment, really looked, like he was noticing for the first time how small it was. How the window was patched with tape, how the radiator clanked every 20 minutes. You live like this, he said quietly. Not a question. I've been sending most of my money to you and Mom. He closed his eyes. I didn't know how much. I told him. I pulled up my bank statements and showed him. 4 years of transfers. The medication payments. Megan's car loan hits on my credit report. The monthly $1,500 to Mom. In total, over the course of a decade, I had given my family close to $200,000. It was sitting right there in black and white. Dad stared at the numbers. His hands were shaking, and I didn't think it was from his heart condition. Your mother told me you paid a little here and there to help out, he said. A little here and there, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of it. That's what she called it? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We sat in silence for a while, then he stood up, slowly, and did something he'd never done in my adult life. He hugged me. Not the stiff, obligatory holiday hug. A real one. The kind that shakes. I'm sorry, Sophie, he said into my hair. I should have paid attention. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. But I hugged him back. He left after an hour. He didn't ask me to cancel my decisions. He didn't plead Megan's case or deliver Mom's demands. He just left, quietly, and texted me later that night. I enrolled in the supplemental plan. Thank you for the link. It was the smallest thing. And it was everything. Thanksgiving came. Megan hosted. As planned. In her Pinterest-perfect dining room with the reclaimed wood table and the cloth napkins she'd bought with money she didn't earn. I wasn't there, of course. I was at Elena's apartment with 4 other nurses from the ICU who also had nowhere to go or nowhere they wanted to be. We ate Thai food out of containers and watched terrible movies and laughed until our ribs hurt. Around 9 o'clock, my phone lit up. Megan. Dad told us how much you've been paying. Mom is crying. Todd won't talk to me. The bank is repossessing the Lexus on Monday. Are you happy now? I looked at that message for a long time. Happy wasn't the right word. I wasn't happy that they were struggling. I wasn't celebrating their downfall like some villain in a movie. But I was relieved that the truth was finally out. Relieved that the weight I'd been carrying for 10 years was off my shoulders and sitting exactly where it belonged, on the people who'd created it. I typed back one word. Noted. Then I put my phone away and asked Elena to pass the pad thai. December came in cold and bright. I started noticing things I'd been too broke and too stressed to see before. The way my neighborhood looked in the early morning, all frost and quiet light. The coffee shop on the corner where the barista remembered my name. The little bookstore I'd walked past 1,000 times but never gone into because I couldn't justify spending $12 on a novel. I went in. I bought 3. I also did something I'd been putting off for years. I called a contractor about my window. The one that had been broken since I moved in. The one I'd patched with tape and cardboard because every spare dollar went to my family. He fixed it in an hour. Cost me $120. I stood in my apartment afterward, feeling the absence of the draft for the first time, and cried over a window. Because that window was proof of what I'd been doing to myself. Living with broken things because I couldn't afford to fix my own life while I was busy fixing theirs. On Christmas Eve, I worked the day shift. When I got home, I stopped at the little flower shop near my building and bought a bunch of lavender. No reason. Just because it was pretty and it smelled like something gentle, and I wanted my apartment to feel like a place someone loved living in. I arranged the lavender in a mason jar on the kitchen table. I made hot chocolate. I turned on the string lights I'd bought at the dollar store and hung crookedly above the window, the fixed window, and sat in the soft glow of my own tiny, imperfect, beautiful space. My phone buzzed. Mom. Merry Christmas, Sophie. I know things have been difficult. Your father told me some things I didn't want to hear. I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but I wanted you to know I'm thinking about you. I read it twice. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. But it was the first message from her in 2 months that didn't contain a threat, an insult, or a demand. And for now, that was enough to let me set the phone down without my chest hurting. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. Because I was learning something important about boundaries. They weren't walls built out of anger. They were doors I got to open and close on my own terms. That night, as the city hummed with Christmas Eve energy and the faint pop of distant fireworks echoed off the buildings, I sat by my window with my hot chocolate and my lavender and my 3 new books and the quiet hum of a life that was finally, truly mine. They had told me I was the problem. They had told me not to come. They had said my negativity was poison, my questions were attacks, my existence was an inconvenience. But they were wrong. I wasn't the problem. I was the solution they'd been exploiting. And when the solution walked away, the problem didn't disappear. It just landed on the people who'd been hiding behind me. I took a sip of hot chocolate. It was perfect, the right amount of sweet, the right amount of warm. I whispered it to no one. To myself. To the version of me who'd eaten Thanksgiving dinner on a bar stool in the corner, too afraid to ask for a chair. You made it. And then I opened my book, pulled a blanket over my legs, and started the first chapter of a story that was mine to read, mine to live, mine to write however I wanted. No more broken windows. No more empty chairs. No more apologies for existing. Just Sophie. Quiet, stubborn, free. And that was more than enough.